Part of all of your movies, and it's, and it's...
Keep your voice down, please.
And I don't like her now.
I'm not your slave and you're not my master.
A gay James Bond.
Asking these stupid fucking questions.
News channels and reporters have abandoned true journalism, transforming it into a tool for biased narratives. They prioritize emotions over facts, silence dissenting opinions, and dig in deeper when confronted. But what happens when their well-spun tales are met with unwavering logic and undeniable truth? Here are 8 times when disrespectful woke reporters got owned instantly. Kicking things off with the time Pierre Poilievre went head-to-head with a clueless interviewer trying to defend a criminal while shifting the blame onto society. Listen closely.
Bail. The crime has already happened, or the alleged crime has already happened. So, how can you attribute bail to this increase in crime, and not should there not be more supportive measures to prevent the crime in the first place?
Well,
You're talking about someone being on bail. They've already allegedly committed the crime. So where,
they're committing crimes on bail. That's the problem. The problem is, I'll give you an example. In Vancouver, the same 40 offenders were arrested 6,000 times in a year. That's 150 arrests per offender per year. Why? Because they're arrested in the morning, then they're released on bail by noon, they reoffend, they're back in jail by 2 in the afternoon, and then they're released by the evening so that they can commit their final crime before they go to bed.
The failure of the system to not support people who have committed crimes, gone to jail, served their sentence, and then they're committing another crime. So is this not a failure of things like social services and support for people who have committed crimes?
Are you serious?
I'm asking you a
No,
question.
I mean, are you serious? Come on. You're telling me... No, excuse me. Let me answer your question. Are you honestly saying that it's society's fault if a repeat violent offender commits 60 or 70 offenses? I think that criminal is to blame for his own actions. He is personally responsible. We're not talking about some kid who made one mistake when he was 19. We're talking about people who do 60, 70 violent offenses. And then because they're criminals.
But why are they criminals?
Because they do crime.
And why do they do crime?
Because we let them out early on bail.
So because they
I think we've solved the riddle here.
Because they got let out early on bail.
That's right.
They then commit the crime.
That's right.
So
that's what all the experts agree is the cause of the crime.
So had they stayed in jail the whole time, on bail, in jail, not on bail as you say, they would then not commit crimes?
Because they'd be in jail, so they couldn't commit crimes.
And when they get out at the end of their sentence, they're crime-free?
Well, we can't guarantee that, but what we can guarantee is the period when they're behind bars, they will not be able to do crime.
What you just witnessed is the perfect example of common sense clashing with utter nonsense. It's both hilarious and tragic that such reporters exist in our media today. But as always, logic doesn't apply to the woke. Take this next instance, for example. A reporter asked if there could ever be a gay James Bond. The question was so absurd that Daniel Craig's reaction said it all. Then Lucas stepped in and shut it down with his brilliantly articulated, witty response.
Do you think there could be a gay James Bond?
Guys, let's be adult in the room for a second. There is no way around the fact that nobody would ever know James Bond desires, period. Having said that, now, the important thing is that he does his missions properly. Having said that, darling, I adore you.
Next, we have Sean Strickland, a professional MMA fighter who completely dismantles a pro-choice reporter with nothing but cold hard facts and unflinching logic.
So it's gotta be. We've got a pretty supportive gay and lesbian community in this city. I did want to ask you about something you wrote a couple of years ago. You said if I had a gay son, I would think I'd...
Oh, look, another. I'm saying to you, the swamp, you guys, the swamp.
You become a champion, you become a star, and someone says...
Let me ask you something. Are you gay?
Have you had the chance to interact with a more diverse...
Let me know. Are you gay?
Can I get an answer?
Well, no, I'm asking. This is a part of. Are you a gay man?
I'm an ally of the community.
Okay. If you had a son and he was like, you had a son, he was gay, you'd be like, oh man, you don't want a grandkid?
No problem with it.
Oh man, well, dude, you're a weak fucking man, dude. You're part of the fucking problem. You elected Justin Trudeau. When he sees the bank accounts, you're just fucking pathetic. And the fact that you have no fucking backbone, and has he shut down your fucking country and seized bank accounts? You ask me some stupid shit like that, go fuck yourself. Move the fuck on, man.
I feel like that doesn't really answer
coward.
the question, but I did want to ask also things you said about the trans community. You said this past October when they announced the Bud Light sponsorship that you'd go so hard on Bud Light in your next fight, they'll have to accept me or denounce me when they know what and will know what they stand for. Are you
This guy's like, nah, this Canadian's not that Canadian.
Are you still going to use your fight time to kind of speak on that?
Here's the thing about Bud Light. 10 years ago, to be trans was a mental fucking illness. And now all of a sudden, people like you have fucking weaseled your way into the world. You are an infection. You are the definition of weakness. Everything that is wrong with the world is because of fucking you. And the best thing is the world's not buying it. The world's not buying your fucking bullshit you're fucking peddling. The world is not saying, you know what? You're right. Fucking chicks have dicks. The world's not saying that. The world's saying, no, there are two genders. I don't want my kids being taught about, who they could fuck in school. I don't want my kids being taught about, their sexual preference. Like, dude, this guy is the fucking enemy. You want to look at the fucking enemy to our world? It's that motherfucker right there, asking these stupid fucking questions.
I absolutely love how supremely confident Sean is. No apologies, no backpedaling. He says what he believes and stands by it without hesitation. Next up, we have an incredibly stupid reporter who went way out of line, repeatedly asking the same absurd question, even after Gary Coleman had already answered it clearly the first time. She was so ridiculously annoying that Gary finally had enough and decided to walk out of the studio, proving there's only so much nonsense one can tolerate.
I just want you to set the record straight here, just point blank. Do you have a volatile relationship with your wife? Have you ever physically touched her?
No, I don't have a volatile relationship with anybody. If we have our discussion, and like most of the time the men lose, if I lose or she loses, she goes that way, I go that way.
But she went not just this way, she called the police and said that you had assaulted her.
You know what? If people would want to believe that I assault my wife at 4'7" and she's 5'6", then they can believe that all day long. I don't care.
Well, why don't you flat out deny it then, right here? Because otherwise, everyone's going to look at this and say he's waffling around, and he probably did it.
I don't waffle. There is no abuse that goes on in my house. I don't waffle. Now, if people believe that I'm waffling, then they can go do what they need to do.
Did you abuse your wife? Did you abuse her? Did you lay your hand on her?
And you know what? You can go the same place.
Did you lay your hands on your wife, Gary Coleman? Because she says
drown
you did.
yourself in the ocean.
She says you did.
You know what? I have this on my head because I fell down the stairs. I don't want people thinking that my wife is abusing me.
Why don't you want to answer the question about whether you abused your wife and everything else? Pardon me?
You can go yourself.
Really?
And quit asking me.
Is that the way you talk to your wife?
Yeah, if I have to, if I need to, but I don't. And I don't know you, and I don't care about you.
And is this the kind of anger that leads to your physical assault?
Doesn't matter to me.
Let me tell you
so
what I'm going to ask you.
Hold on. Or get hit by a bus tonight. I'm not going to care because she's pushing my buttons, and I don't like her now. And the next thing I'm going to do is leave. So all of you.
Gary, come back.
No, you.
The reporter wasn't even interviewing Gary, she was outright badgering him. It was clear from her tone and actions that she was trying to treat him like a child, which was both disrespectful and demeaning. I genuinely feel sorry for Gary, but I'm glad he stood up for himself and walked out. Some interviewers are notorious for their disrespectful behavior toward their guests, and this next guy is no exception.
Let me ask you about violence. I mean, you said, everyone knows you make violent movies, you like violent movies. Mm-hmm. Why do you like making violent movies?
I don't know. It's like asking Judd Apatow, why do you like making comedies?
You just get a kick out of it, or you just enjoy it?
Well, I think it's good cinema. I consider it good cinema. You sit there in a movie theater when these cathartic violent scenes happen. I'm talking about the cathartic violent scenes. I'm not talking about there's two types of violence in this movie. There's the brutality of the violence in the day put upon the slaves
the rape
during the time. I don't think there's any rape going on in the movie. All right, but there's brutality to the slaves. That hasn't been dealt with in America to the extent that I deal with it. And I'm showing you that there was 2 Holocausts in America. This is one of them. We've dealt with the Indian Holocaust, the Holocaust of the American Indian in America. But we haven't been dealing with the Holocaustic aspects, the Auschwitzian aspects of the slave trade in America. My movie deals with that. Then there's the cathartic violence of Django paying back blood for blood.
And that's why, is that why you think people like watching violent movies? People who are not violent people or twisted people in any way, but why it's okay to go into a movie and enjoy the violence?
Yeah, well, it's a movie. It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy. It's not real life. It's a fantasy. You go and you watch, you watch a kung fu movie and one guy takes on 100 people in a restaurant. That's fun.
But why are you so sure that there's no link between enjoying movie violence and enjoying real violence?
I'm going to tell you why I'm so sure. Do not ask me a question like that. I'm not biting. I refuse your question.
Why?
Because I refuse your question. I'm not your slave and you're not my master. You can't make me dance to your tune. I'm not a monkey.
I can't make you answer anything. I'm asking you interesting questions.
And I'm saying I refuse.
Okay. Well, no, I was just asking you why. That's fine. But you see, Jamie Foxx has said we can't turn our back and say that violence in films or anything that we do doesn't have a source of
Then you should
influence.
talk to Jamie Foxx about that. And I think he's actually here, so you can.
I'd love to, but I mean, it's interesting that you have a different view, and I'm just trying to explore that.
Yeah, and I don't want to, because I'm here to sell my movie. This is a commercial for the movie. Make no mistake.
Well, you interviews.
Yeah.
So you don't want to talk about anything serious?
I don't want to talk about what you want to talk about. I don't want to talk about the implications of violence. I haven't wanted. Because the reason I don't want to talk about it is I've said everything I have to say about it. If anyone cares what I have to say about it, they can Google me and they can look for 20 years what I have to say about it. I haven't changed my opinion one iota.
No, but you haven't fleshed it out. That's the only reason.
It's not my job to flesh it out.
No, it's my job to try and ask you to.
And I'm shutting your butt down.
And that's entirely your
This is a commercial
right.
from my movie.
No, I know, but it's my job to try and explore some serious themes as well. I'm sure.
I invite you to explore some serious things, but not things that I have already been on the record for talking about.
Well, violence is such a big part of all of your movies, and it's an enjoyable part of your movies for so many people, and that's why I'm talking about this, because it's a very sensitive time at the moment. I mean, the Vice President is talking to people in the movie industry today about violence in response to
and you know where I stand on it.
Which is that there's no relationship. And
yes.
But you haven't said why you think there's no relationship.
It's none of your damn business what I think about that.
Well, it's my job to ask you why you think that.
And
because you're very influential.
No. And I'm shutting you down.
But you have a responsibility as a filmmaker, surely, to explain a little bit about
No,
what
I
you're
don't
doing.
have any responsibility to you to explain anything I don't want to.
Well, not to me, but to your viewers, to your fans, to people who
they know
care about what it is that you're doing.
They know where I'm coming from. And I have explained it. And I have explained even what you're talking about. I'm just not giving it to you.
Why?
Because I don't want to, because I've done it already.
To be honest, this felt less like an interview and more like an interrogation. In fact, the whole exchange had the intensity and drama of a scene straight out of a Tarantino script. Except this time, Tarantino was both the writer and the star, delivering a mic drop performance. And speaking of mic drop moments, who better to bring up than Donald Trump himself? Let's throw it back to the time when he completely put a female interviewer in her place after she kept interrupting him while he was trying to answer her questions.
Are saying the exact same thing about you, that you should have warned them the virus was spreading like wildfire through the month of February instead of holding rallies with thousands of people. Why did you wait so long to warn them?
Who are you with?
And why did you not have social distancing until March 16th?
Who are you with?
I'm Weijia Jiang with CBS News.
So, if you look at what I did in terms of cutting off or banning China from coming in.
Chinese nationals. But by the way, not Americans who are also
Nice
coming
and
from
easy,
China.
nice and easy, just relax. We cut it off. People were amazed. These gentlemen, everybody was amazed that I did it. We were very early. Oh, I'm the president. And you know what I just did? And you know what I just...
And by the way, when you issue the ban, the virus was already here.
Okay, and you know how many people, when I issued the ban, how many cases of virus were in the United States when I issued the ban? Do you know the number? No, how many cases? Remember I said one person. How many cases were here when I issued the ban?
Did you know?
No. You have to do your research. How many?
I did my research. On the 23rd of March, you said you knew this was going to be a pandemic.
Can I tell you what? I did know it. I did know it. All I have to do is look.
So you knew
Anybody knew it. Are you ready? How many cases were in the United States when I did my ban? How many people had died in the United States?
So do you acknowledge that you didn't think
Keep your voice down, please.
Spread?
Keep your voice down.
Did you not?
How many cases were in the United States? I did a ban where I'm closing up the entire country. How many people died?
And that's a fair point.
How many people died in the United States? And yet I closed up the country, and I believe there were no deaths, 0 deaths at the time I closed up the country. Nobody was there. And you should say thank you very much for good judgment.
Love him or hate him, Trump's commanding presence and refusal to be talked over made this a moment to remember. These woke reporters have taken absurdity to new heights, and it's perfectly showcased in the interview where Joy Reid goes head-to-head with Tiffany Justice. Despite Joy's attempts to push her narrative, Tiffany calmly and confidently shuts her down with logic and facts, leaving Joy scrambling to recover.
The question I'm asking is, what is the expertise that you have and other Moms for Liberty advocates have to decide that a book, an award-winning book like All Boys Aren't Blue, isn't appropriate for students to read? What is your expertise?
What a tragic story of a young man who's anally raped by his adult family member. So you have incest, pedophilia. Joy, you said you'd let me answer, so I'm going to answer
Please
for you. In what context is a strap-on dildo acceptable for public school? That's my question to you. Tell me what the context around the strap-on dildo or the rape of a minor child by a teacher.
Hold on a second.
No, we're talking about public school.
One moment.
All right.
So now you've asked me questions.
Sure.
I'm going to answer it.
Okay.
Well, who is the main character? What's the name of the main character in All Boys Aren't Blue?
You're asking me right now.
You just gave me very specific information about this book, so you're presenting yourself as somebody expert.
It's the gentleman.
Hold on. Who's the main character in the book?
The main character is the author.
What's his name?
George, I believe, is his first name.
Because you're giving me very specific information that is.
You're asking me to remember the name of an author.
You
the
just
name of the
remembered
author
very
doesn't.
specific names.
Joy.
Here's my question.
We're talking about
Here's my
strap.
question.
You didn't answer my question.
No. I'm going to answer your question.
Great. I would love to hear that.
Absolutely. Well, I'm interviewing you, and you're not interviewing me. So let's just make sure it's a conversation. Okay,
great.
So what I'm saying to you is that as you are not an expert in this book,
I don't have to be an expert to know that dildos aren't appropriate for public school. I mean, come on, let's get real.
This book is a full context story, as you said, of the author's experience. Why is it your right, or a Moms for Liberty activist's right, to say that a parent who wants their child to have access to this book, which gives a personal experience of this author, why doesn't a liberal parent, for instance, or a parent of an LGBTQ kid, why don't they have a right for their child to just have access to this book? Why is it your right to say they can't?
So, again, we're talking about incest and pedophilia.
And each parent, each parent has to decide what is appropriate for their child to read. So I want you to answer. I'm going to ask it one more time. What is your right to tell a parent who wants their child, who might feel seen by this story, why don't they have the right? Why don't they have the right as a parent to say, my child can have access to this book?
If a child feels seen by this story, that means that they have been the victim of a predator. That means that they have either been raped by a family member, they've experienced...
and you're that is what?
You just said that
What's
if a child feels seen by this story. You're
now making assumptions about it.
It's absolutely ridiculous that Joy Reid would question Tiffany Justice, a mother of 4, on whether parents should have a say in what their kids are being taught in school. How on earth can anyone argue that parents don't have the right to raise concerns about their own children's education? It's a level of absurdity that defies common sense and similar to Joy Reid. We have this next woke reporter who thought he could corner Pierre Poilievre with his questions, but Pierre didn't get angry, didn't dodge a single question, and answered them all with absolute clarity. And the best part? He did it all while casually munching on an apple like a total boss.
On the topic, I mean, in terms of your sort of strategy currently, you're obviously taking the populist pathway.
What does that mean?
Well, appealing to people's more emotional levels, I would guess. I mean, certainly you tap very strong ideological language quite frequently.
Like what?
Left wing, this and that, right wing. I mean, it's that type of ideological thing.
I never really talk about left or right.
Anyways, a lot of people
don't really believe in that.
Okay, a lot of people would say that you're simply taking a page out of the Donald Trump book.
Like which people would say that?
Well, I'm sure a great many Canadians, but...
Like who?
I don't know who, but...
Well, you're the one who asked the question, so you must know somebody.
Okay, I'm sure there's some out there, but anyways, the point of this question is, I mean, why should Canadians trust you with their vote, given, you know, not just the sort of ideological inclination in terms of taking the page of Donald Trump's book, but
what are you
also
talking about? What page? What page? Can you give me a page? Give me the page. You keep saying
in terms of turning things quite dramatically in terms of Trudeau and the left wing and all of this. I mean, you make quite a, you know, it's quite a play that you make on it. So I'm
not
just
sure.
wondering.
I don't know what your question is.
Then forget that. Why should Canadians trust you with their vote?
Common sense.
Okay.
Common sense for a change. We're going to make common sense common in this country. We don't have any common sense in the current government.